Hello and welcome to Mississippi Insight. I'm Byron Brown. Thank you for joining us. This morning, clips from Crisler versus Jones, the 2021 Hinds County Sheriff runoff debate. The top two candidates squared off Thursday night before this Tuesday's runoff election. We'll bring you excerpts from the second half hour, which streamed live on WJTV.com, and we'll recap reaction to the EPA's reversal of its Yazoo Pumps veto. The controversial project is on hold yet again. That's all ahead on this week's Mississippi's Insight. Tyree Jones and Marshawn Crisler drew the most votes in this month's special election for Hinds County Sheriff. Crisler is the interim sheriff, and Jones is a longtime veteran of both the Sheriff's Department and the Jackson Police Department. My opening question to each candidate in Thursday's live broadcast: why do you see yourself as the best suited to fill the shoes of the late Sheriff Lee Vance?
The reason I can explain very easily why I'm best prepared for this position, you just said it, I'm in it right now. I'm certainly have been on the job 90 days, and we have accomplished a lot in it. But the main reason, because of my background, I have a well documented and diverse background. Administration, education, budgetary experience, and law enforcement experience is what is important in this job right here. This is the largest sheriff department in the state of Mississippi, and it has the largest workforce and the largest budget. So administration, education, and law enforcement experience are critical if you're going to be successful in this job. As you mentioned, I have been the chief administrative officer for the largest city in the state of Mississippi. My educational background consists of 2 criminal justice degrees, a public policy and administration degree, and my budgeting background consists of being on this Jackson City Council managing a $300 million budget. And lastly, I have 25 years of law enforcement experience.
It's due to my connection that I have with the city of Jackson and Hinds County during my tenure in law enforcement. I have uninterrupted service in Hinds County and in the city of Jackson. Due to the trust that I have built from the community, along with the training, the education, and the experience that I have received on the job, best makes me suitable and best fit for this position as well as the transparency that I plan to continue once I'm elected into this particular office as well. I want to continue to be honest with the public, be truthful with the public, and assure the public that we have their safety at best heart as it relates to the issues that our county and that our cities are currently plagued with today. I have been well groomed for this position. I believe that I am the best fit candidate as well. Not only that, I have up-to-date training and up-to-date certifications to go along with the education, background, and the experience that I have as well.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jones, what would you do to curb the increasing crime rate in Hinds County? 60 seconds.
Well, you have to develop partnerships. Hinds County Sheriff's Office can't do it alone. The Jackson Police Department can't do it alone. Part of my success has been built on partnerships. I have been fighting crime for 22 years consecutively. During those 22 years, I formulated partnerships outside of the agency that I was assigned to, meaning federal agencies, local, state, other agencies as well. When you do this, you're able to bring other resources and necessary tools in to help curb whatever the type of crime there are. You have to also involve the full criminal justice system as well. You have to involve your prosecutors, you have to involve your judges. Everybody that plays a role in the criminal justice system must come to the table. You have to have an open line of communication. And again, I cannot stress how important it is to have partnerships as it relates to curbing the violent crimes in the city of Jackson and in Hinds County as well.
Mr. Crisler, what would you do to curb the increasing crime rate in the county?
Well, first and foremost, I think experience in the county makes the difference. As my opponent has said, he's done 20 years with the Jackson Police Department. My 20 years has been with the Hinds County Sheriff's Department. And again, that requires you to know the county and know how to police the county. So that is our top priority as the county's top law enforcement. In terms of the city of Jackson, we're already doing those things to, again, make sure that our city is safe. And that comes by way of task force. And we put together a gun suppression unit that would identify dirty guns in our communities and making sure we get those out of our community, because we know that those guns are the ones that are taking lives in the city of Jackson. But we also want to, not beyond task force, we want to use technology. I'm talking about bringing in drones so we can have a better bird's eye view of what's going on in our city. We're going to talk about bringing back in the helicopter and working with our different agencies outside of Hinds County. I've already formed partnerships with the Rankin County Sheriff's Department, the Madison County Sheriff's Department. Again, we want to make sure we focus on what's the main thing. The main thing in Hinds County is make sure the entire county is safe. But task force are what we would dedicate to the city of Jackson to help curb the violent crime and gun violence in our city.
Mayor Lumumba has said part of the problem with crime is there's not enough jail space when police make arrests, and many of the suspects are quickly being released back onto the streets. I asked him about using other counties for overflow, and he indicated that some of them will not cooperate. If jail space is a problem, what can you do to find space so these criminals are not roaming the streets waiting for their court date? Mr. Jones, I'll give you that 60 seconds.
You have to have a working relationship and a professional relationship with agencies outside of Hinds County. You have to be able to have that relationship with Madison County, Rankin County, Holmes County, other agencies that are nearby that are readily available to take detainees or inmates that you currently don't have room for. It's still your responsibility to make sure that we have the safety of the detainees after they're arrested. And sometimes that involves taking them to another jurisdiction and having them housed there. Not only that, during my tenure with the Sheriff's Office, this is something that I have played a role in as well. We have taken detainees or inmates to other jurisdictions to have them housed there. So I'm very familiar with the process, and I'm very familiar with the contact that needs to be made in an effort to make this happen as well. Thank you.
Mr. Crisler, what can we do?
I would push back a little bit on the fact that we don't have that relationship with the surrounding counties. As a matter of fact, the recent death that we had in the jail was certainly, could have been certainly a catalyst to a person losing their life. So what we did, the people who were certainly accused and certainly charged with that assault have been already placed in the Rankin County Jail. We thank Sheriff Brown Bailey for being open and putting them in that jail. We also know that if overcrowding occurs, we have a relationship with Randy Tucker with the Madison County Sheriff's Department and Brian Bailey, who are open to allowing us to put those prisoners in jail. So we go back to those relationships. Relationships matter, and I've already established those relationships here at your current Hinds County Sheriff. We also have relationships, as I mentioned, with our state agencies, and those relationships come by way of the experience I have over 25 years in civilian law enforcement, over 21 years in military police law enforcement. Those relationships have been established. We're utilizing them, and those partners of ours are open to housing our prisoners.
According to a 12 News investigation last month, the Hinds County Board of Supervisors said it would take a year or two to turn things around at the Hinds County Detention Center, which currently is in danger of a federal takeover. What do you see as the central issue there, Mr. Crisler?
I think the central issue is meeting all the prerequisites set by the DOJ. The Hinds County Sheriff's Department have their set of requirements and prerequisites, and the Hinds County Board of Supervisors has theirs. We're working steadfast on addressing all the ones in the Hinds County Sheriff's Department. But I want the citizens of Hinds County to be very clear. Unless we do both, unless we solve and respond and meet the prerequisites of the DOJ at the Hinds County Sheriff's Department and the Board of Supervisors, we're not going to get from underneath the Department of Justice consent decree. But I feel confident that the relationship that I've established as the Hinds County Sheriff with the Board of Supervisors, we could do it within that time frame. I'm hoping and trusting we can do it even sooner. The time frame will be dictated by how we respond to the DOJ's consent decree, and we're working tirelessly to meet those requirements.
Mr. Jones?
That's a very good question. The truth of the matter regarding this particular question is not only do we have the consent decree issue, but we have a leadership issue as well. There was a jail walkout that the public doesn't know much information about, where there were only 3 detention officers left in the facility that happened this past Saturday. That is a very, very serious issue that Hinds County faced that particular day. There were employees that walked out of the detention facility as it relates to some issue they had regarding leadership. Not only that, we have a jail administrator that has been assigned to the Sheriff's Office for several months now. She has tenured her resignation as well. So we're in a setback as it relates to the detention facilities. We're nowhere near ready to come from under the consent decree. As a matter of fact, we are moving backwards instead of forward with the consent decree. The public should know this, but again, we still have to continue to try to meet the mandates and continue to check the boxes of the consent decree with the best with what we have right now. Thank you.
30 seconds to respond.
Well, let me just say that walkout absolutely did not happen. They attempted to walk out at the instruction of my opponent. But I want people to know, at the end of the day, when I got down there, immediately when I found out that employees had some issues and concerns that they did not want to report to duty, keeping in mind that people were still on their shifts, that's why we have shifts, that I went down, addressed the issues, and they went back to work. So it wasn't, again, a coup, wasn't anything like a walkout, but I think my opponent attempted to make that a case.
That brought us to the end of the broadcast portion of the debate. But the two men were not done arguing over conditions at the jail. We'll bring you that and their comments on staffing at the Sheriff's Department when Mississippi Insight continues. Thursday debate turned heated in spots. One such flare-up came during our discussion of staff morale at the Raymond Detention Center. We circled back to that as the digital portion of the debate got underway. Here again are Marshawn Crisler and Tyree Jones.
The concern was the jail walkout. There was a recent resignation of the newly appointed jail administrator as well. I also spoke about the several employees that walked out in the parking lot of the facility, leaving the detainees inside of the facility. I think that my opponent came back and he made a strong accusation that I instructed the employees to do so. I think that that is a very strong and false accusation, and I completely dispute that. I have not had any contact with any detention officers or advised anyone to walk out. But what I can tell you is the detention officers have a problem or an issue with leadership. I did not facilitate a walkout. I only heard about it through the local news, just like everybody else. Because again, as my opponent stated, I have been off work since the end of September during the campaign. Thank you.
Mr. Crisler?
Let me just say that the employees of detention doesn't have a problem with leadership. What they had a problem with is communication. So I went down to the detention center immediately and addressed the concerns that detention officers had, and they had concerns like pay. I obviously just put in for a 5% pay raise for the employees. It was at 2, I raised it 5. I also made sure that they got COVID relief money, an extra check before Christmas. I also ensured by unanimous consent of the board, now they're going to get paid twice a month rather than once a month. These are some of the issues I addressed on the parking lot with those employees. They weren't out there long. After I addressed those concerns, they went back to work. At no point, because of the contingency plans we have in place, at no point were anybody at risk. We handle it as a leader does, and so I handle that on the spot.
A Hinds County detention officer makes roughly $28,000 annually. That's about $2,000 less than what a state correctional officer makes, which, by the way, is already one of the lowest detention officer salaries in the nation. If elected sheriff here in Hinds County, what would you do to help level the playing field when it comes to annual compensation? 60 seconds.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad you asked that question. I'm already having an opportunity to do that. As your current sheriff, I again went to the Board of Supervisors very humbly and very passionately to ensure that our employees received a 5% pay raise. When I took this job 90 days ago, it was settled that it would be a 2% pay raise. I came in and asked them very respectfully that I think that that is an insult to give our employees simply a 2% pay raise. So I was successful in not only doubling the pay raise, more than double the pay raise, and not only that, we got the COVID relief money. So our employees have been valued, and value means doing more than just talking about it, it's doing something about it. So that 5% pay raise is certainly, I know, welcome, and it elevates our detention officers to be closer to the state average in terms of salaries.
Mr. Jones, what would you do about compensation for employees?
Yes, of course, that's very important because it goes to being able to retain your employees. You have to have incentives in place. You have to have competitive pay salaries, pay increases as well. These things are very important if you want to be able to keep your detention officers there, to keep them from going elsewhere after you have properly trained them and certified them with the Hinds County Sheriff's Office as well. Not only that, another thing that's very important for them as well is making sure that they have the necessary tools and equipment to perform their duties as a detention officer. They need radios, they need handcuffs, they need leg irons. These are things that are very important because, again, not only do you want to assure the safety of the detainees, but assuring the safety and overall quality of your detention officers should be prioritized as well. Thank you.
What do you want to do to reach out to criminal justice students or potential recruits from other jurisdictions who might want to build a career with the Hinds County Sheriff's Department? Sheriff?
Thank you for that question. I've been doing that for the last 20 years. I've been an adjunct professor at Hinds Community College for many, many years. And in that capacity, I have recruited my students to get into law enforcement, specifically in the city of Jackson and specifically at the Hinds County Sheriff's Department. So I'm still doing that. I'm still an active adjunct professor at Hinds Community College, have taught at Jackson State as well. But I think the recruiting tool is so invaluable when we talk about making sure we get the most qualified individuals in our law enforcement rank and file. I'm proud to say that I'm the only one at this debate right now who possesses a degree, specifically a criminal justice degree, because I do believe a criminal justice degree is valued and so very important in carrying out the duties in today's criminal justice system, because it is a lot of technology, a lot of intellectual capital that needs to be applied to forming policies and procedures and SOPs in order to fight crime in this 21st century crime wave we have.
Mr. Jones, what would you do about recruiting?
You have to have a recruitment division in place to be able to go out and recruit people for the job. Not only that, you want to have a platform in place as well as it relates to being able to have them or show them where they can come to the Hinds County Sheriff's Office. They can start out as a detention officer. They can work their way through the rank and file of the Sheriff's Office as well. When I say that, they can be promoted to other divisions. They're able to obtain a supervisory position with the Hinds County Sheriff's Office as well. And while I applaud my opponent for his several degrees and everything that he has, let me tell you one thing that I have that I bring to the table that is very, very key in this particular situation. I have a state of Mississippi law enforcement certification, something that my opponent lacks. I asked him last week at the debate, was his certification still active? And he said yes. His certification has been expired for several years due to inactivity.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Crisler, the Jacksons, you want to respond to that?
Absolutely.
All right, give you 30 seconds.
My certificate is on file with the Mississippi Board of Minimum Standards. You can get that as a public record, so I want to be very clear about that. What my opponent is missing is that when I came back as the public safety commissioner for the city of Jackson, I went back through the refresher course to make sure my certificate was updated. So again, facts matter. So I am absolutely on the Board of Minimum Standards. I've had my certification certified twice since 1992.
Well, go ahead, 30 seconds, Mr. Jones.
According to minimum boarding standards, after 2 years of lapse, your certification is expired. So I challenge my opponent to be able to produce an up-to-date certification. He has been out of law enforcement, as he states, public safety administration, for well over 2 years. Again, that certification has expired. That's online, it's available for people to read and see. It's an inactive certification. He needs refresher courses again. Thank you.
I will produce
go ahead and respond. Go ahead.
Real quick, I'll produce that certificate. Thank you very much.
You can watch the entire debate between Marshawn Crisler and Tyree Jones online at WJTV.com. The runoff election for Hinds County Sheriff is set for this Tuesday, November 23rd. The Yazoo Pumps after a quick break. Mississippi Republicans are still steaming after the Environmental Protection Agency reversed its own course. The EPA restored its veto of the Yazoo Backwater Pump project. The pumps project was designed to help control flooding in the Delta, but conservation groups have fought the project due to environmental concerns. The Trump-era EPA supported the project, but under President Biden, the agency said its decision under President Trump violated the Clean Air Act. Senate Republican Cindy Hyde-Smith blamed Democratic Congressman Benny Thompson for the veto, saying he destroyed the project. That particularly drew an angry response.
She's dead wrong. I've historically supported the pumps, just like I've supported this project. What proof does she have that I have been lobbying people in Washington against the pumps. She can't produce anybody that I've talked to or said anything against the pumps. So she needs to be an adult, get her facts right. I'm on record supporting the pump.
You can expect more demands for the pump's construction and more objections in the weeks and months to come. And we'll be right back. We'll be back next weekend with more of the political and current affairs coverage that you demand. I'm Byron Brown. From all of us here at 12 News, make it a great weekend.